Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a really interesting look at something called Propolio.
Or propolis, as it's often called in English.
Right, propolis. Now, maybe you haven't heard much about it, but bees, they definitely know it. They make this pretty amazing stuff by mixing tree resin with their own secretions and beeswax.
hmm
And it ends up as this greenish-brown kind of sticky substance they use to coat their hives. It's sometimes called bee glue.
Yeah, that's a good description.
Uh,
Nature's super glue, almost.
Exactly. And people have been curious about it for ages, from old folk remedies right up to modern science labs.
It's got quite a history.
It really does. So our goal today in this deep dive is to explore what the potential health benefits of propolis might actually be based on the information we've got in front of us. Okay, ready to jump in.
Absolutely. It's fascinating how something bees use for, well, hive maintenance, sealing cracks, keeping things clean, has grabbed so much human attention for health.
It really is. It makes you wonder what else is out there in nature. So just to be clear, this isn't like honey. Propolis is different. It's this sticky green-brown stuff bees make from tree sap and, other bits they collect.
Their primary job for it is structural integrity and defense for the hive, sealing gaps, preventing drafts, but also keeping out microbes.
Right, keeping things clean. And that antimicrobial aspect is probably why it popped up in traditional medicine, isn't it? For boosting the immune system, fighting infections.
Precisely. It's a classic case of observing nature. The bees use it defensively, so the thought process was, maybe it can help defend us too, long before we knew about the compounds involved.
Makes sense. And when scientists did start looking into why it might work, well, it turns out it's incredibly complex.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking, what, over 500 identified compounds now?
Yeah, over 500, and a big chunk of those are polyphenols. You hear about polyphenols a lot. They're those antioxidants, the good guys that fight cell damage.
Right. The protective compounds.
But here's the really interesting, maybe tricky part.
Yeah.
The exact chemical makeup of propolis isn't fixed.
No, not at all.
It changes based on where the bees gathered the resin, what time of year it was, even the specific trees in that area.
And that variability is, well, it's crucial. It means propolis from Brazil might be quite different chemically from propolis from, say, Europe or China.
Which makes it hard to just say propolis does X, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
which propolis are we talking about?
Exactly. Research on one type might not apply universally. It complicates drawing broad conclusions.
Still, the information gives us a general breakdown. Usually it's about 50–55% resins and balsams. Those are the sticky organic bits from tree bark.
And those resins are likely where a lot of the antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory action comes from.
Then you've got 30–40% wax, bee-made wax.
Yeah, standard beeswax component.
And about 5–10% essential oils. Those give it its characteristic smell, right? The volatile compounds.
Yes, and those oils might have some biological activity too.
Plus, surprisingly, about 5% pollen, which is basically bee food full of nutrients.
Adds a nutritional element, though the amount varies.
And the last 5% or so is just other stuff. Minerals, amino acids, vitamins, enzymes, a real mix.
It's a complex natural cocktail, really.
And all that variation leads to different types of propolis. It's not just one thing. There's green propolis, apparently the most common, often from pine trees.
Often, yes. It usually has that green or yellowish green look and a pine-like scent.
Then there's red propolis. That comes from birch trees, the information says. Reddish-brown color. Smells like birch.
Correct. Distinct source, distinct properties often associated with it.
And finally, black propolis.
Yeah.
From oak trees. Dark brown or black with an oaky smell.
So just like you might have different types of honey based on the floral source?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. The color and smell give you clues about where it came from and maybe what it's good for.
That is a good analogy. The plant source is key to the final chemical profile and its potential effects.
Okay, so we know what it is, roughly what's in it, and that it varies. Now, the big question, what about health benefits? The info lists quite a few possibilities. Antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, antioxidant, and anti-inflammatory. That's a pretty impressive list.
It is. And it covers a lot of ground. Of course, the level of evidence for each of those properties can vary quite a bit.
Right. Some things are better studied than others.
Exactly. But those broad categories, antioxidant, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, they provide the basis for looking into specific uses. Like antioxidants fight oxidative stress.
Which is linked to chronic diseases.
Right. And antimicrobial suggests uses against infections, maybe in wound healing.
Okay, let's look at some specifics mentioned. First, wound treatment. Apparently, propolis has a compound called pinosembrin,
Pinosembrin, yes, it's a flavonoid.
and it's got antifungal and anti-inflammatory properties. So the idea is propolis might help wounds, like burns maybe, heal better, and even boost collagen production.
That's the thinking. The combination of fighting microbes and potentially reducing inflammation and supporting tissue repair makes it interesting for wounds. Pinosembrin is just one piece of that puzzle.
Interesting. Okay, next, cold sores. Herpes labialis.
Ah, yes, a common application area.
The information suggests that topical ointments, even with just 3% propolis, could help speed up healing and reduce symptoms. It even mentions a study, I think in the Journal of the American Academy of Dermatology, that found it was pretty effective.
That's significant. Clinical evidence in a reputable journal adds weight. The antiviral properties might target the virus directly, while the anti-inflammatory aspect calms the outbreak.
Definitely something people who get cold sores might want to look into, perhaps.
Potentially, yes.
Then there's oral health. Seems like it could be good for mouth and throat infections, maybe even preventing cavities.
Its antimicrobial action could help manage the bacteria and fungi in the mouth.
And it's actually in some sore throat products you could buy.
Yes, sprays and lozenges sometimes contain propolis, leveraging those antibacterial and soothing anti-inflammatory effects for sore throats.
Okay, now, this next bit sounds really promising, but the info also urges caution. Potential benefits against cancer and chronic diseases.
Right, this is where the research gets more complex and often more preliminary.
It suggests propolis might have a role in treating some cancers by stopping cancer cells from multiplying, or even making it less likely for cells to become cancerous.
There's lab research, in vitro, and some animal studies showing those kinds of effects, anti-proliferative, potentially preventing cancer initiation. It's intriguing.
And it might even help reduce side effects from chemo and radiotherapy.
There's some observation of that, yes. Again, mostly early-stage research, but the idea is that its antioxidant or other protective properties might mitigate some treatment damage.
And the list goes on. Cardiovascular diseases, neurological conditions like MS or Parkinson's, even type 2 diabetes.
The common thread there is often the potential impact of those polyphenols and antioxidants and anti-inflammatories.
So maybe lowering heart disease risk, protecting nerve cells.
That's the hypothesis being explored. Reducing oxidative stress and inflammation are key targets in managing or preventing many of these chronic conditions. Polyphenols from various sources, including potentially propolis, are studied for these effects.
But, and this is a big but highlighted in the material, we can't just jump to conclusions.
Absolutely not.
It's really uncertain if propolis by itself delivers these benefits in humans, or what dose would even be needed.
That's the critical gap. We have promising lab data, but translating that to effective human treatment requires rigorous clinical trials. We need to know if it works in people, how much is needed, if it's absorbed properly, and if it's safe long-term for these conditions.
Right, so lots of potential, but still lots of questions. Now, what about downsides? Reasons someone shouldn't use it? Contraindications.
Yes, there are definite risks for some people. The main one is allergies.
If you're allergic to honey or bee stings.
You have a higher chance of being allergic to propolis, too. Cross-reactivity is common. The same proteins or compounds can trigger reactions.
And interestingly, the info says even using it for a long time might cause an allergy to develop in some people.
That's possible, yes. Sensitization can occur with prolonged exposure even without a prior allergy.
Plus, if you have pollen allergies, your risk of reacting to propolis is higher.
Because propolis naturally contains some pollen collected by the bees, so pollen-allergic individuals need to be cautious.
So the bottom line seems pretty clear. If you have allergies, especially bee, honey, or pollen allergies or asthma,
definitely talk to your doctor or an allergist before even thinking about using propolis. It's crucial. An allergic reaction can be serious.
Okay, so assuming someone doesn't have those allergies and they're curious, where do they find this stuff?
It's generally available in pharmacies and natural health stores.
And it comes in different forms. Creams, ointments, lotions for the skin.
Right, topical forms.
And then tablets, liquid extracts, throat sprays, capsules for taking internally.
Yeah, a range of options depending on the intended use, skin issues, sore throat, or more systemic supplement use.
But we come back to that essential advice, stressed again in the information we have. Talk to your doctor first.
Always. Before starting any supplement, including propolis, make sure it's safe for you, won't interact with medications, and is appropriate for whatever you're considering it for.
And really important, propolis shouldn't replace conventional medical treatments.
Absolutely critical. It might be considered as a complementary therapy in some cases if discussed with a doctor, but never a substitute for evidence-based medical care for diagnosed conditions.
So wrapping up, propolis is clearly this amazing natural substance. Bees make it, they use it brilliantly, and humans have used it for a long, long time.
Indeed. It's a great example of bio-inspiration, from the hive to potential human health applications, a testament to nature's complexity.
Which brings us to a final thought to leave you with. Considering how much the composition of propolis varies, and that research is still ongoing, what else might we discover about optimizing its benefits? And how could those subtle differences in bee populations, the trees they visit, the environments they live in all around the world, how might that influence what we find out next?
That's a fascinating question. The interplay between the bees, their specific environment, and the resulting propolis, and then how that translates to human health, there's still so much to learn there.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.